Monstrous Regiment tells the story of Polly Oliver, a young woman from Borogravia, a worn-torn country on the Discworld. She runs away and joins the army, disguised as a boy, as the folk songs go, and due to the shortage of troops, her fellow soldiers include a vampire named Maledict who has sworn off blood, a troll named Carborundum, an Igor, and fellow humans called Tonka, Shufti, Wazza and Lofty. Their exploits become known to the outside world through William de Werder and Otto Schreck, who work for the Discworld's first newspaper, the Ankh-Morpork Times.
Otto, a fellow black ribbon-wearing vampire, sidled up to Polly as they walked back to the cart. "I need to tell you something about your vampire," he said. "Oh, yes." "You are a friend of his?" said Otto. "Yes," said Polly. "Is something wrong?" "There is a problem. He's got twitchy because he ran out of coffee." "Alas, if only it was that simple." Otto looked awkward. "You have to understand that when a vampire forgoes the B word, there is a process that we call transference. We force ourselves to desire something else. For me, this was not painful. I crave the perfection of light and shade. Pictures are my life. But your friend chose coffee, and now he has none." "Oh, I see." "I wonder if you do. It probably seems so sensible to him. It is a human craving, and no one minds if you say, as it might be, 'I am dying for a cup of coffee,' or 'I'd kill for a cup of coffee.' But without coffee, he will, I'm afraid, revert. You understand this is very difficult for me to talk about." Otto trailed off. "By revert, you mean?" "First will become mild delusions. I think that is already happening. He will become erratic. This may last for several days, and then his conditioning will break, and he will once again a true vampire. No more Mr. Nice Coffee Drinker guy." "Can I do anything to help him?" "You can find him some coffee, or you can keep a wooden stake and a big knife ready. You would be doing him a favour, believe me." "I can't do that." Otto shrugged. "Find someone who will." "I need coffee," moaned Maledict. "Okay," said Shufti, who'd been working over the fire. "This might do it. It smells like coffee. Well, quite like coffee. Well, quite like coffee if coffee was made from acorns, anyway." He'd roasted some acorns. At least the woods had plenty of them at this time of year, and everybody knew that roasted ground acorns could be substituted for coffee, didn't they? Polly had agreed it was worth the try. But as far as she could recall, no one had ever, given the choice, said, "No, I will not touch horrible coffee anymore. It's a long black ground acorn substitute for me, with extra floating gritty bits." She took the mug from Shufti and carried it over to the vampire. Maledict grabbed the mug and tried to down the contents so quickly that they spilled over his chin. They watched him swallow. "Tastes like mud," he said, putting down the mug. "Yes, but is it working?" Maledict looked up and blinked his eyes. "Ye gods, that stuff is gruesome. But the feelings aren't so strong." And from this small plot diversion, I wondered, how hard is it to make acorn coffee?
In order to beat the squirrels and the weather in picking the acorns, I had to pick them while they were green, and you want them to have proved to be brown. So if you pour them into a paper bag and store them for a week or two, when they've been left, they will soon turn this rich brown colour, and most of the little caps will have fallen off. Now it's time for the sorting process, just to make sure that they're all hale and hearty acorns and haven't got any little holes from flies in. Discard any that don't suit and take off any last caps and stalks. Fill your saucepan with cold water and bring the acorns to the boil, which will definitely kill off any flies and maggots that you've missed, and also starts to rinse the excess tannin from the acorns. Bring them to the boil and cook for 20 minutes or so until you feel that they are well stewed. Then drain and rinse. The next stage is a bit like shelling chestnuts. You want to cut away the now soft shell of the acorn and remove this and any of the sort of skin that's left inside. So you're left with the smooth acorn, which is a bit like a nut and a bit like a chestnut. The boiling in hot water helps, but as you can see, this is a rather fiddly, time-consuming section. So I'm returning the acorns to water to bring them to the boil. Once again, one of the instructions I'm following says to do this, one of them doesn't. So I'm definitely going to do it, and this will once again wash away some of the tannin and clean up any bits of skin that are left on them. Depending on the type of acorns you have, you may want to do this 2 or 3 times. So bring them to the boil and then drain and rinse the acorns and then put them in fresh water and bring them to the boil again, repeating until they are clean. I'm now going to leave the acorns to dry, and then I'm going to put them in the oven for roasting. But I thought I could miss out a stage, which was grinding up the acorns with some sort of food processor or grinder. And I think I still need to do that before I roast them, otherwise they're just going to be too larger chunks to roast in the oven. It does feel a bit like cheating using the hand blender for this stage, but I suppose I could have cut them up with a knife. All of the written instructions to make acorn coffee require a specific temperature for doing the roasting in, and to roast your acorns until they are, a nice brown overall colour and not burning. So because I'm running with the Aga, I don't have it at a set temperature. I just cook things until they're ready. I just kept a visual eye on them and turned them over, making sure that they were going brown all over and not just burning in one place, and making sure they didn't get too dark and catch too much. So sorry for the poor lighting, but here you can see the unroasted acorns. And here we have the roasted acorns. They've been in for an hour now. And I've cracked some of the sort of larger pieces open. And they're sort of dark through and through. The final process for the acorns is to grind them into a coffee-like consistency and then give them one final roast in the oven. Obviously, a sensible person would use an electric hand blender like this to get your acorns to a good, coarse coffee texture. But to me, it just feels like cheating. So I'm doing a certain amount of the acorns with the hand electric blender, and then I'm going to do the rest processed by hand, more traditionally with a coffee grinder. I think this whole project was just an excuse to buy myself a coffee bean grinder that matches all my other kitchen accessories. The final stage is to roast the ground acorns in the oven for another 15 to 20 minutes, checking and turning them regularly to make sure they don't burn. Oh, that's a pathetic colour. Slightly biscuity water in there. Put a drop of milk in. It's not terrifying. Do you know what, that actually makes it slightly more noticeable as a taste? Or maybe that's just the milk. Now that really does have the gritty, floaty bits taste. Equally not a good colour. Almost no taste at all. If this is what we have to give the vampires, we're all in terrible, terrible trouble. I was going to say that almost had a taste, but I think I'd be lying. Well, it keeps you busy, I suppose, all the processing. Alright, there you are. What do you think?
Imagine a place that's pretty cold and featureless and you'd rather not be, and you've got to wait there a very long time, and the only thing there is a coffee machine. And that's the kind of coffee. It's pretty unpleasant. Really. Not good. No.
No.
No, really no.
I can see why, if you were living in a land where there was nothing, no supplies were getting through, and whatever you had around you was yours, and you had the time to process it, I can see why you would do that to have a hot drink. Yes, definitely. And if you knew what coffee was and it wasn't coming through, then it would be something. And I can also see that the processing would give you something to do if you were trying to keep your mind off of other things. But that's it. And to stop a vampire from breaking their pledge to the Black Ribboners, to the Temperance Society, they'd have to really, really, really want to keep it.